everyone. Welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today I have with us, she's an author, and she has a new book out right now that's called The Monsters Are Here. I have with us Lori D'Angelo. Lori, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now tell my audience a little bit about The Monsters Are Here.
It is a short story collection, and it has monsters in it. It has some science fiction. It's got horror, but it's kind of a blend of genres. It has some stories with. There's even a story with an alien. There's a story that has like all universes. So it kind of tries to borrow from more than one genre, and kind of there's a story with vampire, there's some murders, there's a mermaid story, there's a werewolf story. So it's got a whole bunch of different monster stories, and there's also a couple of stories with witches in them as well.
Nice. Now, how long did it take you to gather and compile this collection of short stories?
Well, I guess it would be a long time if you counted the first. Well, one of the stories in it actually was in my MFA thesis, which I wrote in 2009. But my MFA thesis had kind of a mix of realistic and speculative fiction, and it wasn't very uniform. So it was kind of like it didn't really work as a collection. So I guess in the last couple of years, probably 2022 or 2023, I started writing stories that were more like horror influenced and science fiction influenced. And so like that one story, I think maybe the only one that actually pulled from that collection a long time ago. And then I started writing like some stories that were influenced by, I guess, some TV shows that I was watching and some books that I was reading. Like, for example, last summer I read The Exorcist for the first time. I had seen the movie, but not read the book. And I'd read the book Tiny Terrors, which was flash fiction that's like horror flash fiction, and have influenced it as well. And I guess actually there's another story that I'd written back when I was an MFA student. It's my vampire story. And that was me kind of trying to see if I could write like a literary vampire story. So that was my challenge. That was back when Twilight was really popular. So I did that, and then I was like, well, maybe I can write a werewolf story. And I'm like, well, what about witches? So it's kind of me trying to just use some of the standard characters in horror to some extent and write stories around them and see what I came up with. But not just like, what if this happened, but like how logistically would it happen? Like if someone's rotting corpse was stalking you, like what would that be like? You're at a coffee shop and there's a corpse there, and what would happen? So it's me trying to kind of like basically like go through like if this actually happened, what are some things that would be weird about it, like in a real life setting. So kind of try to deal with how might this look, I guess.
Now, having stories from way back over the years, isn't it interesting as an author to look back and see like, wow, how much your writing style has changed?
Yeah, and I think the stories that were older, a lot of them were longer. So a lot of stories that are newer are shorter. So some of the like it's a mix of flash fiction and full length stories. So that's why to some extent some of the stories that I had written back then aren't in there, but also, I mean, there's two stories that are in there have gone through so much revision. Like pretty much every aspect of the stories, I was like, okay, this isn't working. This doesn't sound like something the character would say. So I had to go back and edit a lot of stuff.
Now, do you prefer short stories over collections over doing full length novels?
I like reading short stories, but I like reading novels too. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but I guess short stories allow you to explore a whole bunch of different characters and situations.
So right now, as a writer, right now as an indie horror writer, especially, like there's a lot of creators coming. There's a lot of authors coming out. There's a lot of good stuff coming out. What are some challenges that you have ran into as an indie horror writer?
I mean, one challenge is definitely marketing, trying to figure out how to market your book, especially when you're publishing with a small press, trying to figure out like how you can get people's attention. But so my book comes out October 31st. So I'm trying to schedule a lot of events and do some different things like locally. And then of course, you can post some of those events. Like if I would take video, I could post them online. Trying to get on Goodreads was a challenge for me. Like it took forever and it was not an easy process. So just trying to navigate all the steps towards publication, especially when you're having to figure it out yourself for the first time, it can be a challenge, definitely.
I can imagine. Because I mean, that's one of the things I hear with a lot of indie horror creators in general, filmmakers and authors, is how do you market yourself? How do you get your name out there? How do you get your books in front of an audience?
Yeah, and that definitely is a challenge. I mean, one thing I try to do is just like kind of go back and see what connections I'd made over the years, like the conference, like users of that conference, and see if I could like come back as a presenter, or there's a local nonprofit near where I live, so I contacted them to see if I could do a class, because a lot of times, like if you have an MFA or if you've published a book, there are opportunities to do things locally to get your name out there. And then, I mean, sorry, there's some publicity associated with that, because then your picture and your name are on their website too. So if you can kind of draw on local resources and connect with other local authors, like I'm participating in a local literary festival next month with some other authors, and then I'm doing a reading with two other authors that write like spooky fiction, and our books are coming out around a similar time. So hopefully that will draw in some more people versus if it were just me. Like that's one thing. Like sometimes if you do a reading and conversation is popular right now. So that's one thing that you can do is try to pair with other authors. And I know some people are even doing like readings together online. So there's that option as well.
And that's something I even see. So I go to a lot of horror book festivals, and I've seen even authors talking about pairing. I've seen authors get tables together and work together to promote their work.
And that makes sense, because I mean it is expensive to rent a table. Like some things where if it's gonna be like $200, like I don't think that I'm gonna sell $200 worth of books, so it's probably not worth $200. So I am the event that I am doing, I think it was like $35 for a table, and I saw another event that I might do where it's only like $5. So you kind of have to weigh the cost and benefit of a lot of things. Like if it's free, great, but if you have to pay, like how much would you be willing to pay where you would still like basically not be losing money, because you don't know if you're going to sell any books or how many books you're going to sell. So that's definitely a challenge to figure out like what should you spend money on, and like is it worth it, the cost versus the reward of it.
I agree. Now, when it comes to your book is going to be released, it's right around the corner. How fucking exciting is this? Or are you a little bit nervous as well?
Well, I mean, it is exciting, but it's also kind of like, well, you've gone through the whole process. Like, I didn't realize, like proofing the proofs and getting the blurbs. And so, in a way, it's kind of like a relief, too, because you're done with all of that, like reading the book over again and reading the book over again and like getting through that whole process. Because when you read it and you think like the proof that you sent off, and then you realize later, oh, I didn't fix all the mistakes. Like, so then you get the galley and you can make edits to the galley. And so the whole process, like when you have the book out, I feel like there is some stress, because you're like, is anybody going to buy it? I know that I've had some pre-orders, but I don't think that I've had like thousands of them. But I mean, because I've been trying to promote it like on my social media channels, and just do different things to promote it, like post the blurbs or post different links, or just ask people to say that they want to read it on Goodreads and things like that. So hopefully that helps to some extent to like get the word out in terms of when it's coming out and when it'll be available and how people can buy it. Like I saw somewhere that sometimes people won't buy something until they've seen it like a bunch of times, and a lot of times even on your own social media channels people may not see it like the first 6 times you post it. So it's just like sometimes when people say, oh, I'm going to pre-order now, and I'm wondering like, well, is this the first time they've seen the post? Like, you know, because I mean, there's some people that really measure the analytics, but I am kind of just like trying and hoping it goes well. So,
because I've noticed that even like with Facebook, like I'll make posts and so forth, you know, for the channel. And a lot of people say, I've never seen it because I think it's just Facebook just buries posts.
Yeah.
Depending on whatever.
I think the algorithm can sometimes I've noticed that if you post a post with just a picture or just text, it does better than if you post a link. So sometimes I'll just post a link in the comments, or like the one day I posted a picture of me reading Ray Bradbury and then said my book is coming out soon, and that one like it seemed like it got a lot better attention than some of the other posts that had like links, and I'm like, I don't know, you know, it's kind of like trial and error, trying to see what works and what doesn't work.
Now, Lori, I'm pretty sure you've been a horror fan your whole entire life.
Well, I mean, definitely a long time. I mean, I feel like there's been times when I feel like in my life maybe where I was like, okay, I'm gonna read literature now, but I mean, horror has always been fun for me. It's always been something I've enjoyed. Like, because I remember going to a friend's sleepover when we were little, and we watched When a Stranger Calls and The Shining, and then we had nightmares. At least I had nightmares about someone hiding under my bed with an axe. And Rosemary's Baby. Like I remember when I was in high school, I watched that as part of like I was making a list of like the best movies to watch for Halloween. And Rosemary's Baby, every time I watch it, I have nightmares because I mean I think it's a really good, well done psychological horror movie. So I mean definitely, I've been watching horror on and off, but there's been times like in the last couple of years, I'm like, okay, like right now I'm reading not The Exorcist. I read The Exorcist last year. So this year I'm reading Rosemary's Baby because I've seen the movie, but I want to see like how's the book different. Like I thought it was really interesting when I read The Exorcist last year to look at it in terms of like pacing and building suspense and like what like techniques did he use as an author. I actually listened to it as the audiobook on my way to and from work. And so like I ended up finishing it one day, like right before work, and I'm like crying because the end is kind of sad, and then I have to go into work, and I'm crying listening to The Exorcist, and it's kind of funny because it's not something you would think, but I mean, in terms of the story, there are some like heartfelt parts of it too, because I mean, horror obviously is not just gore. There's also like, you know, people sacrificing themselves and like things like that. So I mean, I think a horror is a really diverse genre, and there's like so many different exciting authors doing exciting things in like all the different subgenres. So it's really cool to see like how much stuff is out there. Like there's indie horror that's really interesting and exciting. There's a lot of movies too. Like some of the recent horror movies has been really interesting, like Barbarian that came out a couple of years ago.
Amazing.
That was really good, and I really liked it because there's so many unexpected twists and turns in it, like things I wasn't expecting. And so I think, and I've been reading like Grady Hendrix too. I've only read like one of his books, but there's just so much there's so much you can do. It doesn't have to be all like bleak and dark and gothic, although it's definitely a part of it. But there's also room for like humor and fun, and I try to incorporate that into my writing. I think like I try to have some like absurd moments too, not just like the really serious stuff.
Yes. All right, and so I'm going to do something right now, Lori, that I do every once in a while. I'm going to ask you 3 random horror questions. These are your personal opinion, okay?
Okay.
The first one is, if you could be any iconic horror monster, who would it be?
Okay. That's a really interesting question. I don't know, maybe like The Fly, because that's just a really interesting film, like what happens, and it's like memorable and interesting and like terrifying. Although I don't think it would be that fun to be The Fly, you know, but it's just kind of cool, you know? It's just kind of cool. Like, it's like, that definitely, like, the image of that is, like, stuck with me all these years. So I'm like, I don't know. That's just the one that comes to me off the top of my head. So I don't know if that's a really good reason. But I just think it's so terrifying that you could, like, transform like that, I guess, you know?
That's such a disturbing movie. Even 2024
Yeah.
watching that, it is so disturbing.
So I think that's why, I mean, if you're gonna do it, you might as well go big, I guess, you know?
Go all the way. Go all the
yeah.
damn way. All right. So the second question is, what is your favorite horror comedy movie of all time?
That's a tough one. I'm trying to think of like what horror comedy movies I like. I mean, I guess someone like maybe like Teen Wolf or something. I don't know. Like, you know, I mean, something that's like kind of funny and fun, because I'm thinking like what other horror comedies are coming to be, because like a lot of the horror movies I'm thinking of aren't really funny. Like Carrie's not funny. That's,
No,
you know, I'm like, it's just not like what is coming. I mean, I guess to some extent you could say that some of the classic horror movies have elements of humor, because like Friday the 13th and Halloween are so ridiculous. Like, they're almost funny at times, or like Freddy Krueger, because like I think, was there one where they were in space, or am I imagining that? I'm not sure, but like it just gets to be ridiculous after a while. Some of the franchise movies, like it's like Michael Myers, like just will not die. I'm like, he would be dead. Like, how is he not dead? He walks so slow. There's not comedies, but sometimes they're just funny because they're so ridiculous. You know, I don't know.
Okay, but yeah, because a lot of those Friday the 13th movies are like slapstick funny. Like,
and I think actually Freddy Krueger. So maybe Freddy Krueger, because Freddy Krueger is kind of witty. You know, he makes some jokes at times in the movies, and it's kind of like you got the humor. And that's one thing that I do like about horror. Like, I reread The Fall of the House of Usher, and that story is like so bleak and just like there's no humor. It's just all so like. I'm probably not the biggest Poe fan. I know a lot of people like Poe, but I'm like, it's just so dark, and it like he wanted it to have like a single mood, and it definitely does. But I like it more when you've got like something to break up the bleakness. Like sometimes like when you have that scene that like breaks up the tension, and then you can go back to being scared. Like even in like the Conjuring movies, like actually the Conjuring movie, my husband and I, when we watched it, we had to like pause it and continue it the next day because we were like so freaked out. We were like, we can't watch all in one day. And like, because that was one of those movies where we're like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. But I think it is nice. I think even there, though, there were moments where like something really terrible would happen, and then there'd be like a break, or like something less stressful, or like calm. So it's nice when you can have that pacing to kind of like, I think humor, in some ways, it can even make it more scary because you don't know. Like when something's like bleak throughout, it's, you know, okay, it's going to be bleak. But when it's humorous, you don't know, like, is the next game going to be funny? Is it going to be serious? And I feel like it adds more tension when you don't know what to expect. So.
And Barbarian, by the way, you brought that up, is one of those movies that definitely has that, because you have that first half of the movie that is kind of bleak and like what's going to happen, and then you shoot over to Justin Long's side of the story, and it's a little more funny. You know what I mean? It breaks it up. I love that movie so much.
And that movie I thought was really good because what you thought it was going to be, at least what I thought it was going to be, it was not. Like, I was thinking one thing, like about the type of horror movie it was going to be and who the villain was going to be, and it wasn't that at all. Like, it really surprised you with that. Yeah, I mean, and then there's like movies like Hereditary, which are like really crazy, bleak. Even though like that I thought was good too, because although in that movie I thought that there were some plot holes, and there's some plot holes in certain movies. You're like, what? Like when you have to look up on like the internet to figure out what on earth is going on. Like I think like the first Paranormal Activity, like there's just stuff that they like put in there and then they never explained it. Like it's just like, well, you mentioned that, and then it's like never followed up. So I think it's better when they can like break up the loose, like, or at least when they like they can tie up the loose ends instead of just like leaving stuff when you have to go back and like try to look it up. I'm like, I feel like you shouldn't have to do that. Like it should be explained by the movie. If you watch it like once or twice or 3 times, you should be able to like figure it out. There was another movie. Actually, I just watched Midsummer for the first time too this year. I never seen that. And actually, yeah, and then Get Out too, I think actually has some humor in it as well. Like because there's parts of it that are funny, like crazy, like when he's making jokes and stuff, and then but it's like so like it's so crazy where it ends up going. Like, I was like, wow, that movie is like just like so memorable because you think on the surface that one thing is happening and it's like something so much like deeper and crazier that's going on in the film.
And I love movies like that myself. I'm 100% in agreement with you.
Yeah, so those are probably some of my favorites of recent years. I mean, there's definitely some classics that are good too, like Night of the Living Dead. I'd say is one of my favorites of classics, but I could be biased because I'm originally from Pittsburgh, so you got that whole connection. And then, of course, actually, like one of my favorite humorous horror movies is Beetlejuice 2, but again, Michael Keaton is from Pittsburgh, so I have not seen the sequel yet, but I love Beetlejuice because it's so fun. But it's got like the dark elements too, and I like you have that lady who's like smoking the cigarette, and they're all sitting there in the lounge, and they're like people's faces are falling off or body parts, and it's kind of and like Ghostbusters too. Like Ghostbusters, you've got all that really good humor. Like that was one of my favorite movies when it came out, and I was like in like maybe like first or second grade, I think. And I remember I had a skating party, and I chose the Ghostbusters song as my song that got to be played because I just love that movie too. And I actually like the remake too, or the reboot with the women, but then they kind of like abandoned that and went back because that was really funny too with like Kate McKinnon. But I think there's like a lot of tension among fans. Like some of them really liked it, some of them didn't. But I just thought it was pretty funny. I mean, I thought it had a good cast, and I enjoyed the cameos too. So
I've enjoyed every Ghostbuster movie except for the last one. Unfortunately, I thought they all were great except for the last one. I don't know why. I just didn't feel.
I didn't see the very recent one. I saw Afterlife, I think, but I didn't see the one after that. Yeah, Afterlife I enjoyed, but the most recent one I haven't seen, so I'm a little behind because I was actually trying to catch up like with horror TV shows. So I'd read Fall of the House of Usher, and then I'd watch the series that they had done on Netflix, which it's not like really based on the story. I mean, it kind of is, but the story is really short, and it just like goes on and on and on. I do like Mike Flanagan though. Generally, like I really liked Midnight Mass. I thought that Midnight Mass was really well done, but yeah. So I'm trying. But I'm like sometimes I won't watch the movie until I've read the book. So I still haven't seen like The Haunting of Bly Manor because I wanted to read The Turn of the Screw, and then I read it, and then I still haven't watched it. So I'm trying to like catch up on the last couple of years. But actually, like sometimes the movie is better. Like I thought The Silence of the Lambs. That when I saw the movie first, then read the book. The movie is better than the book, I think, in that case. 100%. Like, the movie is like really excellent, whereas the book,
that's rare.
It is. But I mean, the movie is just so well done, and I think it actually, and I think the casting is like so perfect too, with Jodie Foster and Hannibal Lecter, and even like the minor characters. Like it, and also that movie was filmed in Pittsburgh too, so there's that. And me and my hometown connection. I don't live in Pittsburgh now, but like anything that is like horror, but I also, I mean, happened to be like really good too. Not just that it was filmed there, but that's always nice for me to have that hometown connection.
Yes. Pittsburgh, a lot of people don't know. I mean, Pittsburgh has a huge horror history. I mean, from Tom Savini to George A. Romero to, I mean, like you said, Silence of the Lamb. I mean, it's a huge horror. I mean, Creepshow. I mean, it's a huge horror history. All right, final question. What is one horror movie that everybody loves, but you're like, it's okay?
I mean, I think that might just be Halloween for me because, like, I just don't think Halloween is very scary. I feel like it might have been scary when it was originally made, but now, actually, also, the other one might be The Exorcist, the original, because I feel like by the time I saw it, it had been, like, played upon and redone, and things had gotten scarier, and so I think that by the time I saw it, it wasn't as scary. I liked the book better, actually. I thought the book was really interesting, but I think by the time I saw it, since it was so long after it was originally released, like a lot of the shock value really wasn't there for me anymore because I kind of knew what to expect, but also I think like we've made advances in like special effects and stuff since then that I actually liked. It was one of the sequels better, which no one likes. I think it was the one with George C. Scott and like the priest and like, I don't know. I liked and some other exorcism movies. Like I really like The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Like some other, like I do think that the idea of demonic possession is creepy, but when I saw The Exorcist after like so much build up, by the time I saw it, like I think I was an adult and I had seen like so many other movies that had been made after that were probably influenced by it. I think it just didn't have like the punch that it would have had back when it was originally made in the 70s. And then Halloween 2, I just never particularly thought it was that scary because it's not like really necessarily that gory, even. It's more like suspense, I guess. And the music is creepy, but I don't know.
The music scares the shit out of you. Like so, Halloween, the original Halloween's my favorite horror movie of all time. Yeah, there's hardly no gore at all, but it is that soundtrack. It's that ding, ding, ding,
it is definitely the soundtrack.
And like the newer, the last 3 Halloween movies kind of did that a little bit, which the other Halloween's movie didn't. Is that ding 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 ding, and then that sliding of the keyboard, which means Michael Myers is something's about to bad happen. Like all of that just gives you unease, and that's why I love about Halloween. But you know the best Exorcist movie I've seen in the last probably 5 to 10 years, and I'm probably going to get some hate in my comments. Exorcist Pope with Russell Crowe. I absolutely love that movie.
I have not seen that one, so I'll have to check that one out.
Watch it. It is so good. It is so good. I mean, Russell Crowe plays this drunk priest, and listen, it has that comedy and that terrifying. You know what I mean? It's just a break in between. It is Exorcist Pope. I heard they're making a part 2. I will be watching that. Exorcist Pope was so damn good.
I'll have to check that out because I have not seen that. And I do try to see like most movies that are like either big or that a lot of people have like referenced that are horror fans. Because sometimes like the obscure movies become cult classics, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I mean, that is like definitely a cult classic. Even though like the first time I saw it, I was like, what is happening? Like I was in high school and I went to like a midnight showing with my friend and I didn't know what to expect or what we were doing. And then later I took another friend and I was like, what is this? Because it's not,
I still don't
like in terms of a film, it's not really that good of a movie. It's just kind of like crazy, but it's more of like the experience of it versus the actual movie. Because like some of the acting is like actually really bad, and it's just, but it is fun if you go with like all these people who are dressed up and doing like the motions and stuff like that. Like it's more the experience versus the film.
I've never understood that film. I'm being this serious.
I mean, it was weird when I saw it. I was like, what is happening? I was confused, but it was kind of like, okay, let's just go with this. You know, it is just a strange film that people like to go and like do the performance. I guess, you know, with it, but you know, yeah.
All right, Lori, where can everyone find you and your book?
Well, you can find me on my website, which is LoriDiangelo.com, and there are links to my social media, like I'm on Instagram and Twitter, X, and Threads. But there's links to all of that on my website, which the website is easy to remember. It's just LoriDiangelo.com. There is a link to pre-order my book because it's coming out on Halloween. On the website, it goes to the publisher's page, ELJ Editions, or you can just search for the book, The Monsters Are Here, and buy it on Amazon because it's available for pre-order on Amazon also.
Awesome. And by the way, listen, everyone, the links to Lori's website and where you can purchase the book are down in the description box. So definitely go ahead and pre-order and grab your copy of The Monsters Are Here. Lori, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thanks for coming on, even though you're a little under the weather.
My son told me I sound like a swamp monster. So I'm like, well, that's appropriate because it's, you know, the book is The Monsters Are Here. And I'm like, and it was crazy because I was like completely fine until like this morning. I'm like, really? Because I'm doing it tonight. And then my son's like, maybe you can just reschedule. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. Hopefully it'll be fine. But, you know, I was like, it's just, so, yeah.
It was fine. It was fine. Listen, everyone, once again, thank you for coming to the Hardware. By the way, I don't say this that much, but hit that like and subscribe button. It definitely helps this channel out. I mean, we 100% support and give everything back to indie horror creators. So definitely like and subscribe. All right, everyone, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that is Lori D'Angelo.
Thank Thank you.
See you next time. Take care.